Discover the incredible revelation, divine secrets exposed for faith, blessing, and transformation as the Israelites, led by Moses, journey through the wilderness. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the Israelites trekked through the parched land, dust swirling beneath their feet, bleached by the sun's relentless blaze. Each step, a reminder of their captivity released by the mighty hand of God, was shadowed by the memory of the parting waters of the Red Sea. The sounds of freedom echoed still in their hearts, yet uncertainty loomed like the oppressive heat above, threatening to smother them in their hopes that it was in this wilderness, not yet enriched by the promise of a land flowing with milk and honey, that the vicious Amalekites ambushed them. From the rocky outcroppings, they surged down upon the weary, targeting the weak and the vulnerable. Order fell into chaos as shouts of alarm pierced the air, calling forth the defenders of Yahweh. Moses, his heart aflame with faith, grasped the staff of the Almighty, a symbol of divine authority. He stood firm, embodying hope and resilience, even as doubt whispered in the hearts of the Israelites. "Gather the men, Joshua." Moses commanded, his voice carrying a weight of urgency. Young Joshua, resolute and charged with fidelity to their God, rallied the warriors. Each man's hand tightened around his sword, still glinting with the promise of victory seen and unseen. The wilderness, transformed from a sanctuary of divine revelation to a battleground, became a crucible of faith, where God's providence would be tested. As the clash resounded below in the valley, Moses ascended a nearby hill, his spirit both heavy and steadfast. He raised his hands to heaven, affirming an ancient covenant, calling forth the divine power that had split the seas and toppled the might of Egypt. But as the tumult of battle surged and wavered, calamity grew dire. Every time his arms faltered, an ominous chill washed over the fight, causing fear and uncertainty to grip the hearts of Israel. The weariness of his task bore down heavily on him. Then, as the sun began to dip in the sky, Aaron and Hur climbed the hill, recognizing Moses' struggle. Unwaveringly, they took their place beside him, their arms encircling his, joint efforts of devotion a testament to unity. With each uplifted hand, the tides of battle turned. With each wearied moment Moses endured, renewed strength surged through Israel's ranks, reflecting their own commitment and faith in the God who had led them thus far. As dusk settled over the camp, a revelation formed. The conflict transcended mere flesh and blood. It was a battleground of faith over fear, a clash where divine promise stood unwavering against the threats of darkness. The cries of the beleaguered Israelite warriors ascended, piercing the heavens. Their plea for divine assistance drew the Almighty's attention, and victory emerged. God's providence flourishing in their perseverance. As the Amalekites fell before them, God spoke through Moses, a somber decree laced with power. This struggle would mark an everlasting war against Amalek. The gravity of the proclamation left the Israelites breathless. What shadows did this promise cast over their covenant of hope and deliverance? With hearts intertwined in faith, their journey was set against this ominous backdrop, compelling reflection upon the divine invitation for faithfulness as they pressed forward. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. The echoes of battle lingered still, a reminder of the tumultuous road ahead, as the Israelites stood united in their resolve. How would they navigate the promise of conflict interwoven in their covenantal journey? Each heart questioned, brimming with anticipation and trepidation, awaiting the unfolding of the sacred mystery yet to come. In the days that followed, the Israelites, buoyed by their unexpected victory, continued their arduous journey through the wilderness. They marched onward, their spirits kindled by the miraculous intervention of God. The vast expanse of sand and rock, however, wore on them, and the pangs of hunger began to gnaw at their resolve. "Why have you brought us out here to die?" A voice cried out from the crowd, echoing the sentiments of many who hungered for the comforts of Egypt, where food had been plentiful even in bondage. Grumbling filled the air, and the weight of memories of flesh pots and bread in abundance threatened to overshadow the glorious deliverance. Moses turned to Yahweh, his heart burdened. "O Lord, what shall I do with this people? They are ready to stone me." He lamented, invoking the mercy of the God who had walked with them through each trial, and the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not." In the early light of morning, the Israelite camp was awakened by a strange covering over the ground. As the sun arose, it revealed a fine, flaky substance, like frost on the ground. Some puzzled and gathered to examine it. "What is it?" they asked one another, bewildered. Moses approached, filled with awe of the provision from heaven. "This is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat," he proclaimed, his voice ringing with joy and authority. "Gather of it, each day, enough for your household. Let no one keep any till the morning, for the Lord desires a wholehearted trust." Thus, they gathered, each according to their need, some more and some less. But when the sun grew hot, what remained melted away, a demonstration of God's daily sustenance upon which they relied. Yet, there were some who disobeyed. They hoarded the manna, seeking to secure tomorrow's provision. But to their astonishment, it bred worms and stank, a stark reminder that obedience yielded life, and disobedience, death. The Lord's words hung heavy, an unyielding call to trust. Moreover, on the sixth day, they were commanded to gather a double portion, for the Sabbath, a day of rest, was to be kept holy. Again, they witnessed a miracle, as the food remained fresh and unspoiled through the day of rest, an assurance of God's abundant goodness, allowing them to cease from labor and reflect upon his eternal providence. And as the weeks marched forth, the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night led them onward, while their hearts yearned for more than bread. With unwavering hearts, they began to comprehend the deeper truth nestled within the daily provision. It was not merely sustenance but a symbol of the sustainer, a foreshadowing of Christ to come, the bread of life sent from above. In this way, God continued to reveal to them the way of his communion, an unbroken promise to sustain their spirits and teach them his ways. Yet, even as they received blessings anew, doubts and longing gripped their hearts, awakening the age-old struggle against the flesh. As they journeyed deeper into the wilderness, they felt the weight of their covenant with God, and the shadow of Amalek still loomed, the ever-present reminder of the battles awaited. What would the next divine revelation bring? Would they trust in their provider amidst the trials yet to come? The stakes grew higher, their path entangled with divine purpose, which had only begun to unfold. The shrouded mystery of Yahweh's full plan lingered on the horizon, whispering promises of transformation and deeper reliance upon the one who leads them through the shadow of uncertainty. And it came to pass, as they journeyed in the wilderness, that the Lord spoke again to Moses, saying, "Gather the people together, and I will give them water." So Moses called to the assembly of the Israelites and told them the word of the Lord. "Hear, O Israel! The Lord your God gives you water to drink. Gather your leaders and your elders that we may seek his face." And the people murmured again in the desert, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Their hearts grew heavy with doubt, for their provision seemed scarce, and their parched throats longed for relief. They recalled the Nile's abundance and wondered if the Lord could sustain them in such desolate land. Moses stood before them, burdened by their complaints once more, and he turned to the Lord. "O God, how shall I lead these people? They thirst for water, and I fear their hearts cry out against me." The Lord said to Moses, "Take your rod in your hand, and go to the rock at Horeb. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and I will bring forth water from the rock, the people shall drink." Moses obeyed and took the rod that was in his hand, the rod that had been a symbol of God's power. He journeyed to Horeb with the elders of Israel, gathering the people around him. "Listen now, you rebels," he cried out. "Shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" And with that, Moses struck the rock twice with his rod, and behold, a miraculous stream burst forth, water gushing into the parched ground, soothing their burning throats. The people drank deeply, yet there was a heaviness upon Moses' heart, for he had acted in anger, and not according to the command of the Lord. Then the Lord spoke, saying, "Because you did not believe me, to uphold me as holy in the sight of the people, "You shall not bring this assembly into the land which I am giving them." A deep silence fell over the congregation as they realized the weight of Moses' actions. His heart, filled with love for the people, had faltered under the strain of leading them through trials, yet the holiness of God remained unyielding. The waters flowed like a river, but the reminder of disobedience loomed over Moses like a dark cloud. Would he now be denied entrance into the promised land? The weight of his leadership bore heavily upon him as he gathered the people to encourage them to trust the Lord amidst their fears. As time passed, weary and worn from walking the desert sands, the people learned anew the importance of faithfulness in the face of their hardships. They had tasted the sweetness of life-sustaining water, yet their reliance on God's provision was continuously tested. One day, as the sun began to set, they encamped before a place called Rephidim. The shadow of Amalek once again loomed over them, a reminder that hostile forces awaited them. The people grew anxious and turned to Moses, asking, "Shall we gather arms? Shall we fight?" Moses lifted his eyes toward heaven, calling out to the Lord for guidance, and a deep stirring filled his spirit. "Tomorrow, I will stand on the hill with the rod of God in my hand," he declared, his voice steady amidst the trembling voices of the assembly, and the Lord assured him, "I will do battle for you, and your victory shall be through my might." The Israelites watched, breathless, filled with both fear and anticipation. What would tomorrow bring? Little did they know, the great unfolding of God's sovereign plan was taking shape, revealing not just a battle against Amalek, but a greater struggle against the very doubts that plagued their hearts. As the night enveloped them, they pondered deeply on the faithfulness of God, while the promise of courage and victory loomed just before them, still shrouded in divine mystery. What was the true meaning of this battle that awaited? And in what ways would their faith be tested and strengthened amidst his unfolding narrative of redemption? And it came to pass in the morning light, as the sun cast its golden rays over the camp, that Moses gathered the people and spoke to them with resolve. "O sons of Israel, prepare yourselves. For today, the Lord will show us his mighty hand. Let not your hearts be troubled, for the battle is not ours but the Lord's." The assembly dressed in their battle attire, fear mingling with hope, and awaited the commands of Moses. Their eyes followed him as he climbed the hill, bearing the rod of God, which had been their staff of authority throughout their journey. With each step upward, he felt the weight of his leadership, and the echo of God's warning reverberated in his mind. Reaching the summit, Moses raised his hands, and the rod stood firm in his grasp. As he looked down upon the valley where Amalek had gathered, a deep sense of urgency filled him. He cast his gaze upon Joshua, whom he had appointed to lead the troops against their enemies. "Go now and act, for the Lord will deliver our foes into our hands." Joshua nodded, his heart steeled by the words of his leader. Without delay, Joshua descended into the fray, rallying the men of Israel, and the sound of swords clashing rose to heaven. As the battle commenced, Moses, with hands raised and the rod of God upraised, watched as the tides of war unfolded. When his arms grew heavy, the forces of Amalek pressed harder against the Israelites. But as the sun began to ascend high into the sky, Aaron and Hur, close companions of Moses, came beside him. They noticed Moses grew weary, and thus they took a stone and set it beneath him, allowing him to sit. They held up his hands, one on each side, and his hands remained steady until the going down of the sun. Amidst the chaos of battle, victory surged among the Israelites. The very ground trembled beneath the feet of the Amalekites as they faltered and fell, driven back by the strength of the one who fought for his people. The day drew toward its end. The victory was not by swords or shields, but through obedience and faith. Finally, when the sun dipped low, Joshua stood victorious, having defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Moses descended the hill, rejoicing in the hand of God that had guided them through the strife. "Write this as a memorial," the Lord instructed Moses, "and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." Then Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissi, saying, "For the Lord has sworn that the hand of Amalek shall be against the children of Israel from generation to generation." In that moment, Moses understood, the battle had not merely been a physical conflict, but a demonstration of trust in God's sovereignty and faithfulness. As the sun set, the people stood in awe, for the day had not only secured their victory but also had deepened their faith. Dark shadows of doubt began to lift as they remembered the miracles that God had worked for them. And yet, in the stillness of the night, the whisper of divine revelation lingered, filling the hearts of those who believed. For this victory was but a shadow of a greater battle yet to come, a promise of deliverance not only from Amalek, but from the darkness that dwelled in every heart. Thus, the people pondered, what greater secret might God yet reveal through their obedience, and how might his sovereign hand guide them to a deliverance that transcended the wilderness. And it came to pass after the victory over Amalek, that Moses called for the elders of Israel, and he shared with them the words of the Lord, instructing them to remember this day. For the hand of the Lord has been with us, he proclaimed, and a memorial shall we set to exalt his name for generations to come. As they gathered around the altar of Jehovah Nissi, the air was thick with a sense of divine purpose. Mirthful rejoicing mixed with solemn reflection, for the Israelites understood that their deliverance was testament to the faithfulness of the Almighty. The flickering flames of their sacrifices illuminated their faces, mirroring their hearts filled with gratitude and awe. Meanwhile, Moses ascended the hill again, seeking communion with the Lord. His heart clamored for understanding, for even in victory, uncertainty lingered. "O Lord," he cried out in the quiet of the twilight, "what lies ahead for thy people? Thou hast delivered us today, but our journey is far from complete." In response, the Lord opened his mouth, and a voice thundering yet gentle reverberated through the valleys and echoed upon the mountain. "Moses, my servant, I have seen the oppression of my people, and I hear their cries. For what I have begun in them, I will complete. They shall enter a land flowing with milk and honey, and there they shall be my people, and I shall be their God." Moses fell to his face, and the dust of the ground filled his senses, for such a revelation was profound. "But, Lord, who might go with us? Our enemies surround us, and we are but a fragile people," he implored, desperation lacing his voice. The response came with peace, "My presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. I will fight for you, fear not, for I shall deliver you from all evil. And as a sign, I will send forth a great prophet from among your brethren, who will lead my people not only to safety but to restoration." As Moses stood on the mount, the weight of such prophecy encircled him, sparking fire in his heart. He turned to descend, his mind racing with questions and wonder. Who is this prophet? And how shall I prepare your people for this great revelation? His spirit ached for deeper insight, yet he knew the time would unveil all. When he returned to the assembly, a hush fell over the multitude. In their hearts, they sensed the gravity of what had transpired upon the mountain, and Moses shared the words of the Lord. "A great promise I bring to you. Our battles are not in vain, for a pathway to deliverance and restoration has been paved before us. Even now, the Lord prepares a way through the darkness." The crowd responded with exuberance, voices raised in a chorus of worshiping praise, echoing the triumphs of the past. "Hallelujah! Our God lives. He will lead us onward," they proclaimed, their faith igniting hope anew. Yet, deep within Moses' heart, an unsettling thought resided, for the weight of the word lingered. What must we endure to see this promise fulfilled? What trials and tribulations shall precede our peace? Thus, the people camped at Rephidim, the air thick with anticipation, as the mysteries of their journey remained latent, and the promise of a prophet propelled their faith. Beyond the horizon, a glimpse of greater battles unfolded, a divine plan weaving through the wilderness, calling forth a deliverer. And as the stars gleamed bright upon the night sky, the hearts of the Israelites were drawn to the heavens, whispering prayers for the promise yet unfulfilled, pondering, when shall this prophet arise? What wonders and signs shall he bear? For within their doubts lingered a divine mystery, hidden yet destined to unfold, for God's sovereign plan was intricately etched in the fabric of time. And it came to pass in the days that followed, while the people dwelled in Rephidim, that they confronted a trial most severe. For the thirst of the multitude became great, and their voices rose up in complaint. "Give us water that we may drink." They cried out, grumbling against Moses. "Why hast thou brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?" Moses, feeling the weight of their discontent, turned to the Lord in earnest prayer. What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me. His heart was heavy, for the burden of leadership pressed upon him, and he sought divine guidance amid their growing despair. The Lord answered him, Go on before the people, and take with thee the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thy hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. So Moses did as the Lord commanded, gathering the elders to witness the great act of God. Moses ascended the rock and lifted his rod, striking it with faith. And all at once, water gushed forth, filling the hollow places and flowing freely among the multitude. The people drank deeply, and their spirits were revived. A great shout of joy arose, The Lord has provided. They proclaimed, their hearts stirred anew by his miraculous provision. Yet even in this, Moses named the place Massah and Meribah because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us, or not? For their hearts had turned once more to doubt, lingering on the edge of despair despite the tangible proof of God's faithfulness. As the multitude settled their thirst, a new threat approached. Amalek came against Israel in battle, attacking from behind the flanks of the camp. Fear surged through the people as they prepared for conflict, unsure of how to stand firm against such an enemy. Then Moses called to Joshua, Choose us out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. And so, Joshua and the chosen men went forth to wage war, while Moses ascended to the crest, carrying the steadfast promise of divine support. In his position high above, Moses raised his hands toward the heavens, lifting the rod as a symbol of God's sovereignty. And as long as he held his hands aloft, Israel triumphed, but when his hands fell heavy and weary, Amalek gained the advantage. Seeing this, Aaron and Hur came beside him, supporting his arms, ensuring that the rod remained raised until the setting of the sun. Thus, Israel prevailed, and they scattered the forces of Amalek, driving them back in defeat. The people rejoiced, praising both Joshua for his valor and Moses for his faith that upheld them through the trade of war. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book, and recount it in the years of Joshua. For I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. As night fell, Moses built an altar, calling it Jehovah Nissi, the Lord is my banner. The elders gathered once more, their hearts ignited by the knowledge that God was with them, yet Moses' spirit was troubled. What more shall we endure? He pondered. Are these battles the path to our freedom, or merely the beginning of our trial? And the clouds shifted overhead, hinting at a greater plan, for deep within Moses' heart resonated the promise of the coming prophet. For amidst the chaos and the deliverance, another call echoed in the wilderness, one that was yet to come, and Israel would see in that prophet the culmination of God's wondrous purpose for his people, transcending both their trials and their tribulations. Would they remain steadfast, even unto the prophecy fulfilled? The answer lingered upon the lips of heaven, wrapped in a divine mystery yet to be unveiled. And it came to pass after these things, that as the people of Israel journeyed onward from Rephidim, they set their faces toward the wilderness of Sinai, where the mountain loomed tall, veiled in clouds and the presence of the Almighty. The air was thick with anticipation, for they knew that the Lord had a covenant to establish with them. Moses, still bearing the weight of leadership and observation, ascended once again into the heights. As he drew near to the mountain, the thunderous sounds of the heavens broke forth with a divine clarity, and a thick cloud descended, enveloping the peak in a holy shroud. Fear and reverence seized him, as he understood he stood on holy ground. Then the voice of the Lord rang clear and powerful amidst the tempest, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Exodus 19 verses 3-5. Moses, trembling yet emboldened, descended to the people with the words of the Lord. He gathered the elders and laid before them the covenant of the Most High, speaking of the righteousness that must be upheld. The people listened raptly, echoing, All that the Lord hath spoken we will do. Their voices mingled like a symphony of trust and commitment, though deep within the threads of their hearts, shadows of doubt lurked ever closer, and thus, the Lord commanded that the people prepare themselves, for on the third day he would descend to deliver his law. He instructed Moses, "Sanctify the people, and let them wash their clothes. And be ready against the third day, for the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai." Exodus 19 verses 10-11. The people obeyed, consecrating themselves and their garments, hearts afire with expectation as they waited in the stillness of the desert sun. But in the heaviness of the tormented spirit, fear clung to their resolve. What if the Lord should turn from us? They whispered among one another, the echoes of their doubts swirling in the air. As the appointed day drew nearer, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and a thick cloud enveloped the mountain, shaking their very core. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled, striking terror in the hearts of the children of Israel. Then the trumpet sounded long and loud, reverberating through the valley, heralding the coming of the Almighty. Moses, once again willing to mediate for the people, approached the mountain's base as the earth quaked, and the Lord descended in fire, the mountain itself aflame as its smoke clouded the sky. In that moment, the people recoiled in fear, overwhelmed by the holy presence. They beheld the majesty of God, and their doubts were laid bare. Who were they to bear such proximity to holy majesty? Yet amidst the shadows of dread, the promises of God unfurled, for this was but the beginning of their sanctification. The white-hot fire of the covenant would reshape their hearts, proving their faith and endurance. For in the very depth of their trials would also come the promise of reconciliation and restoration, a foretelling of what can come through trials, an echo of prophecy yet to unfold. And so, the Lord's purpose deepened, revealing not only a law to guide them but a pathway to a promise fulfilled. For indeed, the prophet, the deliverer, would emerge from their lineage, and through their struggles, salvation would be opened. A sacred mystery was preparing to be revealed in time, one that would shape the destiny of not just Israel, but of all nations unto the end of days. And it came to pass on the third day, when the morning had come, that the people stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, trembling and wide-eyed as the earth quaked beneath them. The mountain was all aflame in the presence of the Lord, and the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, piercing through their very souls. Then Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mountain, awash in fear yet drawn by a deep longing. The Lord descended in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. Exodus 19 verses 16-18. The voice of the Almighty echoed like many waters, powerful and deep, as he proclaimed the commandments that would guide their ways. "I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." The voice resounded, filling the air with authority. "Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image." Exodus 20 verses 2-4. Each commandment hung heavy upon their hearts, a reflection of divine holiness and moral righteousness. The people were overwhelmed, fear gripped them, and they stood afar off, saying unto Moses, "Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die." Exodus 20 verse 19. Moses, moved by the sacred encounter, drew near to the thick darkness where God was, interceding for the people. The essence of the covenant unfolded on the mountain, a boundless understanding that God desired to dwell among them, not merely as a distant deity, but as their Father and guide. And the people saw, and they trembled, and stood afar off, as if the very fabric of their being could discern the weight of sin in the presence of purity. Exodus 20 verse 18. Yet, beneath the fear resided a flickering flame of sacred hope, for this was the initiation of a covenant that would set them apart unto God, a holy nation, a peculiar people. As the words of the Lord resonated through the valley, Moses returned to the people, his face shone with the brilliance of divine encounter, illuminating the path of righteousness before them. "Fear not," he proclaimed, "for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not." Exodus 20 verse 20. Each commandment echoed the love and justice of God, calling the Israelites into a deeper relationship rooted in obedience and trust. The sacred law was more than mere statutes, it was a covenant of love, shaping their identity and forging their hearts to be vessels of holiness. Thus, as Moses continued to receive instructions from the Lord, he learned of rituals and sacrifices, a foreshadowing of the ultimate sacrifice yet to come. Each detail spoke to a divine narrative unfolding. Coded within the law was an everlasting truth, an assurance of God's presence amid their shortcomings. That I in the shadow of the mountain, the hearts of the people began to realign, drawn near by the sanctifying promise of God. A deep mystery whispered through their midst, as through obedience they would experience the fullness of covenantal blessing. And so, in this climactic moment of revelation, the foundations of their faith were being established, a sacred transformation in their wandering hearts. For just as the celestial fire consumed the mountain, so too would the love of God burn within them, setting them on a path toward a promised land and a greater promise yet to be fulfilled, one that would echo through generations, calling forth the faint and weary from every nation to encounter the glory of his grace. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Thou shalt not be afraid, for I have come to establish my covenant with you. Write these words, for they are the foundation of my promise, and with them shall I guide you into the land that flows with milk and honey. Exodus 34 verse 12. Moses was lifted by the promise and called the people to gather their hearts, as he entreated them, Prepare your hearts and be holy, for the Lord your God is holy. Leviticus 11 verse 44. And the people, trembling yet eager, drew closer as the sacred echo of the commandments wrapped around them, weaving a tapestry of divine love and correction. As the voice of God thundered once more from the trembling mountain, it offered not only commandments but also the surrounding presence of grace. If ye shall hearken to my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Exodus 19 verse 5. This promise founded their identity, restoring the dignity they had lost as slaves in Egypt. With pen in hand, Moses began to write the words upon tablets of stone, the glory of God illuminating their every curve. How divine wisdom enveloped the hearts of men! And thus, as he descended from the mountain, his face radiant with the glory of God, the people fell to their knees, awe-stricken at the manifestation of divine favor, but among them, there was a stirring of unrest. Some whispered to one another, as doubt crept into their hearts like a shadow, Who can abide this holiness? How can we, who have served other gods, now stand before the Lord Almighty? Yet, Moses, seeing the uncertainty in their eyes, urged them with a steadfast spirit, Do not turn away for fear of your past. For the Lord has chosen you to be his people, a light unto the nations. Deuteronomy 7 verse 6. Days passed, and the laws began to take root. The people learned the ordinances, setting apart times and seasons dedicated to their God. Yet, in the stillness of their hearts, they secretly yearned for further assurances of his presence. They longed for something tangible, a sign that would affirm their choice to follow the commandments, a covenant they could grasp. And so, the Lord called Moses again, beckoning him back to the mount. Ascend unto me again, the voice came, and I will give thee the tables of stone, and a law, and commandments which I have written. Exodus 34 verse 1. Moses ascended, and as he climbed, the mountain roared in majesty once more, smoke billowing like a tempest. The people watched in hushed reverence and growing anticipation, whispering tales of the mighty acts they had witnessed. Yet, unfurling within the hearts of the people was a deeper longing that could not be quenched by laws or rituals. They awaited something more profound, they longed for transformation that would touch their very souls. God observed their hungry hearts, and in this sacred moment, he began to weave a promise of greater connection. For even as the tablets were inscribed, the prophecy of a new covenant was being sown, a covenant not written merely on stone, but upon the hearts of mankind, where love would dwell, and grace would reign. Would the people recognize this unfolding truth? Would they embrace the mystery of his plans, set before them like an unbroken dawn? As the sky darkened, the flame of revelation flickered brighter, hinting that the Lord's sovereign purpose extended beyond their present, shaping their future with eternal significance. How would this story culminate in the fullness of his grace? The answer lingered like a sacred whisper on the mountaintop. And it came to pass that the days stretched on, the Israelites encamped at the foot of Mount Sinai, their hearts entwined in anticipation of what was yet to be revealed. The solemnity of the covenant laced their conversations, as they pondered the law that had begun to shape their identity and the prophetic whispers of a greater deliverance yet to come. With a sense of sacred expectancy, they awaited the full manifestation of God's promises. In the hush of the desert, the Lord spoke to Moses once more, beckoning him up the mountain in a tone that rippled with authority and compassion. "Come, my beloved servant, for I desire to unveil the fullness of my covenant. Write down these words, for in them lies the pathway to life abundantly." Moses ascended, the stone tablets clasped firmly in his hands. As he climbed, the heavens responded with thunderous applause of holiness, and the mountain trembled beneath the weight of divine presence. The clouds parted, revealing a radiance so pure that it seared his heart with awe and purpose. When Moses reached the pinnacle, the voice of the Lord echoed in purity, "I have not only called you out of bondage but unto a destiny woven with purpose. Listen closely, for I will give you the commandments that shall stand as the light for a people journeying in faith." The floodgates of understanding opened wide, and God spoke forth the commandments, a tender, yet mighty call to righteousness. Each word resonated with love and intent, shaping the threads of a community meant to reflect the holiness of their sovereign Maker. "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and might," rang forth like a clarion call, igniting the hearts of the faithful. Moses bowed, and the spirit of understanding enveloped him, for this was no mundane decree, it was the very essence of their covenant, and invitation to walk in the ways of love, justice, and mercy. With trembling hands, he etched these divine words upon stone, feeling each stroke impart life and destiny into the very fabric of their existence. As Moses descended with the tablets, the people gazed upon him, their eyes wide with belief and wonder. But mixed among them, a flicker of anxiety brewed, and a few voices, drinking from the well of doubt, rose again. What if this path is too difficult? What if burdens come anew? The haunting echoes of their past threatened to ensnare their hearts. Moses, bearing the evidence of divine encounter, approached the assembly with renewed fervor. "Fear not. For God has not banished you to face trials alone. He desires to walk among you, to transform your hearts and deepen your faith. It is not by might that we conquer, but through His grace and love." In profound unity, the people's hearts began to shift. Determination replaced doubt. As Moses conveyed the richness of God's instructions, they clamored, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." A chorus of trust mingled with the dust of the ground, echoing testimonies of their past, and their voices cascaded upwards, entwining in covenant with the Almighty. This marked a defining moment, a resolution forged in the fires of desert trials. The Israelites, renewed in spirit, dared to believe that even in the wilderness, God's presence would echo through their very being. In the stillness of the night, they lit fires, each flame igniting faith and hope, reminding them of the one who delivered them from bondage, who now led them to the threshold of their promise. As the moon cast its silver glow, and the pillars of cloud and fire embraced them, they settled in hearts of peace. The weight of the wilderness still lingered, but it paled in comparison to the glory of what was to come. God's plan was not just for a land flowing with milk and honey, it was for eternal communion, a covenant sealed not just upon stone but whispered into their very souls. Indeed, this darkness, filled with trials, would yield to light when the fullness of the promised deliverer would arrive. In their daily bread and every miraculous moment, God was revealing a greater truth, one that would usher in hope for not only a nation but for the world. As the Israelites raised their voices in hushed reverence, they embraced the essence of who they were meant to be. History would remember how they journeyed, bound together by a covenant of love, a foreshadowing of the glory to come. And even amidst the wilderness, they began to grasp their divine destiny. Thus, with spirits renewed and hearts intertwined, the known journey became a tapestry of faith and obedience, preparing them not only to inherit the land, but to represent the heart of God, a people chosen, enduring to declare His praises through all generations. Today, beloved friends, this timeless story calls out to us. Let us, too, embrace our divine covenant and bear witness to the faithfulness of God. For the promise of the deliverer has already come and remains with us still. As we part ways, I urge you, subscribe immediately to stay connected to God's Word and not miss the next powerful biblical stories that might just transform your life. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm, reaching souls hungry for truth. Comment with your spiritual reflections and tell us how this biblical story has impacted your faith journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this. Powerful testimony of God's goodness. Only true believers understand the importance of supporting biblical content through these actions to reach more souls for Christ. Let us journey forward together, in faith and obedience.